Today, we're diving into one of the most, well, profound and honestly challenging stories ever told. We're talking about the ancient story of a man named Job. It's a question that has haunted people forever. I mean, we've all asked it, right? You see something terrible happen, or you face some hardship yourself, and you just think, why? Why do good, decent people sometimes go through the worst kinds of suffering? Well, there's this incredible story, thousands of years old, that doesn't just ask the question, it tackles it head on. And fair warning, it doesn't give you any easy answers. Of course, I'm talking about the story of Job. So, let's get into it. The book of Job is what scholars call wisdom literature. And to give you some context, it's set way back, around 2000 BC. That means Job was probably living around the same time as the patriarch Abraham. But don't let the age fool you. This isn't just some dusty old story. It's this incredibly deep, philosophical, and even poetic look at some of the hardest questions we face. And man, this book does not shy away from the big stuff. It's asking, why is there evil? Why do we suffer? And maybe the biggest one of all, how can a just God let good people go through horrible things? I mean, those questions are just as real for us today as they were 4,000 years ago. Okay, so let's meet the man himself. Our main character is Job, and he's from a place called the Land of Uz. Most people think that was somewhere north of Canaan. And here's the thing, to really get the scale of what happened to him, you have to understand just how good his life was before it all fell apart. The story wastes no time telling you who this guy is. He's described with these 4 key traits. He's blameless, he's upright, he feared God, and he actively shunned evil. Basically, he's the poster child for a good, righteous person. And it wasn't just that he was a good guy. He was also unbelievably blessed. The text literally calls him the greatest man among all the people of the East. Think about that. He had a huge family, tons of wealth, a rock-solid reputation. His life looked absolutely perfect from the outside. And this is where everything changes. The story pivots, and we're taken from Job's life on earth to a scene in the spiritual realm. And it's a confrontation that's about to, quite literally, set Job's world on fire. Now, here's something really important to grasp. Most scholars agree this heavenly scene isn't meant to be read as a literal, word-for-word event. It's using what we call figurative language. It's a way for the author to paint a picture of a spiritual reality that's way beyond our human understanding. Specifically, God's total sovereignty over everything, and I mean everything, even the forces of evil. Okay, so here's how this whole cosmic wager goes down. First, this figure shows up. In the original Hebrew, he's called Ha-Satan, which actually means the accuser. It's more of a title like a prosecuting attorney than a name. And this accuser challenges Job's motives. He basically says, sure, Job's faithful now, but that's only because you've blessed him so much. Would he still serve you for nothing? So second, God permits a test. But, and this is key, third, there's a hard limit. The accuser can take his stuff, but he is not allowed to harm Job himself. And what happens next is just brutal. The devastation is immediate and it is total. In a single day, one day, a series of rapid-fire disasters wipes out all his wealth and, just unimaginably, kills all 10 of his children. In the blink of an eye, he goes from being the greatest man in the region to being completely broke and a grieving father who's lost everyone. You'd expect him to scream, to curse, to rage, but his response is absolutely staggering. I mean, faced with this soul-crushing grief, he does all the things you'd expect from someone in deep mourning. He tears his robe, he shaves his head, but then he falls to the ground and he worships. He says those famous words, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." And the text makes it really clear. In all of this, Job didn't sin or point a finger of blame at God. But it's not over, not by a long shot. The accuser comes back. And this time the argument is, okay, fine, but he's only faithful because you haven't touched him. A man will give up everything for his own life. And so, a second test is allowed, and this one is going to get a lot more personal. So once again, the roles are set. You can afflict his body, but you can't take his life. And then Job is struck with these agonizing sores, from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. The description sounds just awful, unbearable itching and pain all over his body. His suffering is so bad, so all-consuming, that his own wife comes to him and says, just curse God and die. Get it over with. But Job, even in this state, refuses. He pushes back, asking her, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? He just holds on. And again, the text points out that he did not sin with his lips. Then his 3 friends show up to comfort him. But when they see him, they're so shocked they can barely recognize him. And the grief and the suffering is just so immense, so overwhelming, that they do something incredible. For 7 days and 7 nights, they just sit there with him on the ground in total silence. What could you possibly say? So after a full week of this heavy, heavy silence, the dam finally breaks. Job speaks. And what comes out is just this raw, powerful, poetic explosion of pure anguish. He opens his mouth and he curses the day he was born. He wishes he had never even existed. It's a cry from the absolute depths of despair. But it's so important to see what he's doing here. Even in all this agony, he curses his life, but he never, ever curses God. And he uses this really powerful metaphor. Remember how the accuser complained that God had put a hedge of protection around Job? Well, now, Job feels like he's trapped inside a hedge of suffering. It's this incredible image of being totally surrounded by pain with absolutely no escape. He's completely helpless. So, where does that leave us after these first few chapters? What are the big takeaways? Well, first, it forces us to grapple with the idea that God's sovereignty is, well, it's absolute. And a lot of the time, it's a total mystery to us. Second, it just blows up that simplistic idea that if you're suffering, you must have done something wrong. And third, we see Job as this really complex example of endurance. It's not just quiet stoicism. It's a mix of worship and incredibly raw, honest anguish. And believe it or not, Job's story is really just getting started here. But it leaves us wrestling with this really powerful question, doesn't it? When life is just filled with that toil and trouble, what does it truly mean to endure? Job's experience makes us think about what that really looks like. And it's a question with no easy answers, which is exactly what the rest of the book is going to dig into.